Perfect. So I'm going to talk about how to develop outstanding user interfaces with Shiny. So I'm David, I work at Novartis, and I develop R packages. So you may know me in the open source environment because of some packages I developed like PS4-, Shiny Mobile, and today I'm going to share my journey towards the creation of our interface and all packages which were created. So Shiny is about almost 10 years old next year, and today there are many tools that can make your Shiny apps shining compared to how it was at the beginning. Let's review some of them. Today I'll explain how I get started from that ugly thing you can see on the left side to the virtual patient simulator which was awarded at the latest 2019 Shiny contest. Let's start with very simple Shiny app. So this is what you have here, a simple app with a numeric input and with a histogram. And then when you change that input, you can see updated changes. So that's very simple application, very simple design, nothing fancy. So here I'm going to switch to that slide. I'm just going to ask that question. Do you think it's a Shiny app? Do you think it's not a Shiny app? And then you can basically answer in the chat, and then yeah, let's just do like this. So here I click on the play button. There is some music playing. I can navigate in the waveform in my music. I can pause the music. Then I click on press again. All right, so this is a Shiny app. That might be surprising, but it's not a clinical app. And the question you may ask is, what is the difference between this first application here, very simple app, and this application here? The only difference, and I just say only, is there are only about 100 lines of CSS, 29 lines of JavaScript code, 2 images, one for the DJ gear, one for the rotating wheel, and 36 lines of code. And I'm using the Wave Surfer HTML widgets, which was showcased, I think, at UseR 2019, which allows me to show the waveform, which is almost like in the real professional DJ gear, and few custom HTML tags. So that's not, like the end of the world. You don't have a lot of this is not a complex project. This is doable. And I'm going to show you today all the tools that exist to reach that level, and obviously to apply in the pharma industry, not necessarily in the music industry. So the first part will be about how you can tweak your app, the CSS and sass. I'll present some CSS basics, and then I'll introduce some packages which you can use to really make things easy. Then I will show you how you can unleash your interactivity with JavaScript. In the third part, I will see how you can deploy a new template from scratch in case you want to create a new design for your application and you are not satisfied with existing packages. And in the last part, it's a sorry, I don't have time part. We'll discover some package together which directly set up template infrastructure so that you don't have to worry about anything. Sounds like a good plan, right? So let's talk about how I can change my app design with CSS and sass, because that's generally the first thing you will need. You already have your application, and you don't necessarily want to create a new template. You don't necessarily want to add like a widget, but you may want to change the style. And this will be done with CSS. What is CSS? CSS is one of the web languages. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And CSS plays with HTML, which is like the structure of the web page, and with JavaScript. So basically, on the left side, you have how CSS works. So you apply a selector, And that selector will select some tag on the web page. So that can be a paragraph, that can be a title, that can be whatever you want on that page. And inside, you have a property, so you can change the color, you can change the background color, you can change the border. There exist thousands of different properties, and you give it a value. So if it's a color, you can put it red, you can put it green, whatever you want. And how it works with Shiny, it's pretty straightforward. You have multiple ways. Here I just show how you can include it in your app. You use the tags $style in R, and then you copy the CSS code inside. And here I just change the color of all paragraph to red. That's quite simple. I just want to start with simple example, but that's quite powerful. Here you see that I change the color to red. But you see, the point is, if I have a very complex application with a lot of different containers, a lot of different widgets, in the end, it's easy to repeat yourself. You can write rules, and you may end up with 500 lines of code, and what you wrote line 20 may be repeating what you write line 40, and you see what I mean. So in the end, you can really end up with spaghetti code, and that's just a mess. You don't want that. That's why I introduce sass, which stands for syntactically awesome style sheets. Sass is not like CSS. CSS is not a programming language. Sass is programmable. It's like R, it's like JavaScript. You can create variable in Sass, you can create functions, you can create loops, you can apply mathematical operators like multiplication, and so on. You can also create modules. So if you want to define a specific style, a specific function in one module, then you can import that module in the main CSS file. And that allows you to avoid to end up with a big file, but instead you will have multiple modules, which is easier to manage. And it's also in line in the way that you are managing our projects. If you are using Golem, for instance, if you are using the data pipeline framework that Adalan demonstrated yesterday, that these are packages that also work around modules. So Sass is also part of the modern web development workflow. So if you work with web developers, they will be familiar with what you are doing. It allows to do dry programming, not to repeat yourself, and it will motivate you to learn more CSS in the end. There exists an interface, our interface for Sass, which is a Sass package, which was developed by RStudio. And I'm going to quickly show you how it works. So you define variables here, so you load the package, you create a rule. That rule targets a specific class. Inside you have the property, and then that property depends on the variable. Here you have another rule which takes the same variable, but you have a different property. That's not the color, that's the background color. And what you do, then you pass to the Sass function, you pass it a list which contains the name of the variable, like color purple, and you pass the two rules. And this is what you get on the right side. You get two rules of CSS without having to write purple twice. So if you have to change it to blue, you only change it once in this place here, instead of changing it twice in the CSS code. About functions, here you create one function which is called the multiply. So you use the function keyword. It takes two parameters. You use the debug keyword just to print those numbers as a debugging option. And then you return the multiplication of those two numbers. And you apply that function to a specific class. And the goal is to multiply the width by A and B. So what you can do with Sass is you can apply mathematical operators to rules, so that make it really powerful. And in the end, what you obtain on the right side is my class and with a specific width. It can be even more powerful if you add loops. Here, let's say I have 100 colors to apply, and I would have 100 class to define. I'm not going to copy and paste 100 times the same thing. What I can do is I define my 100 colors in a vector, and then I do a loop with Sass. I use each keyword, and then for color in colors. So that's very similar to what you have in JavaScript, what you have in R, and for each color you define your rule from programmatic point of view, pointing to the variable color, and this is what you get on the right side for 2 colors. It's quite easy to apply to Shiny. You just need to take the result of the sass command into a CSS, into a variable, you assign it to a variable, and then you can do tags link to that CSS variable and add it to your Shiny app, and that's basically it. You can also import existing CSS or SCSS files in your Shiny app. So here, this is what I did. I point to a specific CSS sass file, and then I modify this sass file by applying my own style. And here I changed the colors, I changed the box colors, I applied the dark background, and this just takes me like a few minutes. So if you work in pharma companies, we have our own color codes, we have our own brand lab, so you could imagine applying your colors to those variables, and just in few minutes having a template which match your company brand lab. But you know there should be something easier, right? You still need to write things to understand how CSS and sass works. And today we have some packages like Fresh and also bslib who provide higher level interfaces to the sass package. And they work for Shiny, they work for Shiny dashboard. So this is how you can install it. Install the package Fresh, install the package bslib. bslib was developed by RStudio, and bslib, in addition to Fresh, provides a live theming widget, which you can modify the theme. You can also get the theme, the corresponding code live. And you can also do dynamic theming, conditional rendering, which I'm going to show in the next slide. So this is an example which involves the BS4- package, which is a bootstrap for dashboard template I developed. And originally, BS4- has a white background. It has a white template. But because of the package Fresh, in few lines of code, in about 20 lines of code, I can target specific variables with just R code. I don't need any CSS. I apply the color I want, and this is what I can get. Instead of having the white background, I get the dark background, which was really straightforward to do. I would say the trickiest thing is to know the color, what means each color. So you will have to spend quite some time to go on the web to search for a specific code and then put the right code in the place. But that's everything you will have to do in the end. And this is what you can achieve with bslib. So bslib supports old version of Bootstrap 3, 4, 5, and it's also made to support further version of Bootstrap 6, 7. I don't know where it will stop. Here you select your version in the code, and you apply a specific background. So here I want a dark background for my Shiny app. I want a white foreground. And then I change the colors. I can change the different main colors of my theme. I can change the font also, like how the text will appear. And I preview my theme here. So you can also change all parameters in live. So here it's I framed the presentation, the application in my presentation. So I cannot use the themer, but this is what you obtain in just about 15 lines of code. So that's very, very powerful tools. Some more demonstration. So this is a dynamic theming example, how you could switch from the dark mode to the white mode. Here I use the thematic package, which is an add-in for bslib, because bslib covers CSS. And if you use base-R, if you use ggplot, if you use lattice, then these are static. These are not part of the document object model, part of the web page. These are just images inserted in the page, so you cannot style images. But because of thematic, you can fix that problem, and then you just use thematic Shiny inside your app, and then you are just able to capture the current theme and then be able to switch to the dark and light as you want. I'm going to show a slightly more complex example. So this is the BS4 dashboard template, and how I switch, from the white mode to the dark mode. So in BS4 you have an internal mechanism which utilize bslib also, and I can style all my plots automatically depending on the current theme, which is very, very convenient and quite powerful if you want to save time. Another interesting thing is conditional rendering. Imagine you want to support Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 4, Bootstrap 5, but in the end you would have to maintain 3 different code base. With conditional rendering, with bslib, and with also the new features from HTML tools, what you can do is have one code base, and with that code base, you can have 2 possible outputs. And this is what you have as an example. You have some Bootstrap accordions, which are containers, collapsible things. And then if you click on this accordion, this is what it does. On the left side, you have the Bootstrap 4. On the right side, you have the Bootstrap 5. But I only have one code base. I don't show the Bootstrap 3 because I don't have enough space and because this is a bit outdated. But if you have to move to Bootstrap 6, the only thing you have to do is to change the code at only one place. So I would say this saves a lot of time, and this is what we want in the end. But the thing is, CSS cannot do everything. You can tweak the appearance of your application in few times, but what if you want to add new widgets? What if you want to optimize the speed of your application? That's the next part with JavaScript. So just as an example here, I'm gonna reload the page, and what you see here, the screen loader, this is a thing which is done in JavaScript. This is the waiter package. We may know waiter. Waiter shows waiting screen for your Shiny application when there is computing tasks. It's better for user experience because instead of showing nothing and making think people that your application crashed, you show a loading screen, and then it's quite obvious that your application is doing something. And this is done with JavaScript. Here you have another example. This is taken from the BS4- package where you can programmatically collapse and collapse box. You can hide them, you can restore them, you can update the content of the box, and everything is handled on the JavaScript side. So it's fast, and you can do many different things, and it applies also to many different components. So in the end, you have like more interactive experiences. But like CSS, JS code can become messy, especially in Shiny projects where there was no guidance over how to manage JavaScript at the very beginning. So the question is, how do I include JS in my Shiny project? What are best practices around JS code management? So let's try to bring some answers together. I introduce you to the Packer package, which allows to manage relevant R and JS projects. It's a sort of use case for JavaScript and R projects. It supports Shiny outputs, inputs, HTML widgets, extensions, and it also has predefined templates for React, for instance, for Vue, and also for Framework 7. This was developed by John Kuhn, who is also a collaborator and in our interface. So this is how it would work if I want to start a new Framework 7 project. So Framework 7 is basically a template which is mobile ready, which provides style for iOS, Android. And then I would create my project with Golem, create Golem, and then I call Packer scaffold Golem with Framework 7 equal true, which does what you see in that video here. It sets up everything you have to set up, like it sets Webpack, which will manage your JavaScript code. So you don't have to worry about anything here. And it also sets up all other dependencies you need to consider. It writes in the build ignore so that you don't have warning when you check your package, because you are adding a lot of JavaScript specific files which are not really recognized for the R package. It installs Framework 7. installs everything you need so that you just get started with a plug-and-play template and you can start coding. So this is an example of what was achieved with that Packer package. So we gave a workshop last week at our in Pharma, which was about how you can unleash your Shiny app with JavaScript. And here what you see is a Shiny app where the UI is JavaScript driven. You don't have anything on the R side. The only thing you have in the R side is the computation of the model, which is here it's a solver for ordinary differential equations. It's a Van der Pol oscillators, and I can change the parameters, and here you can see that it updates the graph. And yeah, that's very fast because yeah, only R is only doing the computation. I'm not handling the interface on the R side. And it also, if you are working like with a front-end developer, it will be able to understand quite quickly what you did. The other interest of using JavaScript is if you ever use render UI, you see that here I render the box with a render UI template and pattern, sorry. And then there is a lag between the time my box appears here. So for the user, it's quite not optimal experience. So now I can play with my parameter, but before there was a lag and the box was not here. So I would say with JavaScript, you can write your own update functions. So here, this is what I did, for instance, for Shiny Dashboard Plus. You can do it also for BS4-. So you create your box on the UI side. It's here so I can reload my presentation. When the application opens, the box is here, but it updates later on the server side. But at least the user sees something. So for the user experience, it's better than using the render UI. And this is something you can do on the JavaScript side with a bit of code. Then there comes a time where you need new templates if you want to develop new templates from scratch. So let's say yeah, you're not satisfied with BS4-, you're not satisfied with the Shiny template, you want to create your own template. Here I introduce you a new tool which is called Sharpant. Sharpant is similar to Packer. It just sets up the plug-and-play structure for your Shiny extension. It also has some functions to convert HTML code directly into R. So it's based into the work of Alan Diepert from RStudio, which provided a proof of concept about that. And yeah, that makes things very convenient to create input bindings. You just call one function and it sets up the boilerplate. So let me show you in that example. I do library Sharpant, I create my package. This setups the structure. I don't need to do anything. It setups also the JavaScript bundle. It's not Webpack here. It's ESBuild, but that's a bit similar to Packer. And then I can start directly to write to edit my new package. I do library Sharpant, and then I want to create a new template which is based in the Bulma JS CSS library. So here I can preview all the versions which are available, and I install the latest. So here it automatically creates the dependencies, the HTML dependency for me with the CSS file which were downloaded from the web. Here I create a new input binding from scratch. So here you have the main structure of an input binding, a JavaScript input binding, and I just need to fill it. And yeah, that's the principle of that package, so that you can really be quick in developing your interfaces. And BS4-, Shiny Mobile, Shiny Dashboard Plus, they are all managed by the Sharpant package. And I'm going to move to the last part, which is, sorry, I don't have time. If you don't have time to write CSS, if you don't have time to write JavaScript code, you can maybe just use existing templates. I'm going to just to highlight one package of the our interface. So this is Shiny Mobile. Shiny Mobile is an adaptation of Framework 7, which is a web template optimized for mobile platforms. It provides a native look and feel for iOS, for Android, and also progressive web apps support. It means it can be installed on the device. Like if you are using Twitter, you can launch your Shiny apps via an icon on your device, which is quite convenient. And it's also displayed full screen. You don't have the navigation bar of the web browser anymore. It also provides offline features. They are quite limited, but if your application is offline, you can have an offline custom page, which is quite convenient. And you also have one code base, which is basically mostly in R. So here is a demonstration of Shiny Mobile with the material design. So yeah, this is working. You have also input validation. You can set up input validation, like you can do with Shiny Validate, for instance, except that here it's internal. It's not using Shiny Validate. Here, this is the slider input. You have a stepper input, which is similar to the numeric input. But what you realize is everything is really optimized for the mobile. You don't have a lot of space on mobile screens. Here it's an action button, which are grouped into like a sort of drop-down. You have card containers. So I'm not going to demonstrate all capabilities, but that's if you want to explore, if you are curious, that's quite a nice package. And if you don't even have time, if you want to go even faster, I introduce you to Truel, which is a Golem interface generator. And basically, this package allows you to set up a Golem project. So you want to create a package, for instance, you set up the engine, which is, for now, it's only Golem, but later it will support more frameworks like React R, for instance, which allows you to create React-powered projects. So here I set up the location where I want to create my project. And then you have several options to edit the description, to whether you want to add a code of conduct, a README, whether you want to use Shiny modules, whether you want to add an input binding, a JS handler. You also have other options, but the most important thing is here, the template part. In the template part, you can select a plug-and-play template, which I designed specifically for that purpose. Everything is supported, Shiny Mobile, BS4 Shiny Dashboard, Shiny Fluent, all templates, and in the end, you get the code which is necessary to create the project, which you can copy to the clipboard, or you can also directly run from the widget. And then the package is created at its location. You can open the package. You can call DevTools, load all. You can run the demonstration application, and you can get started very quickly. I didn't give a lot of detail about JavaScript, CSS. This was a bit on purpose because you will be able to find all those details in the upcoming CRC Press book, Outstanding User Interfaces with Shiny. In that book, I detail everything, how to create a new input, how to design mobile templates for Shiny, all those different things you can find in the wild. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. Yeah, that was my pleasure to be here today.